Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Brandon again. This is going to be a full-on display of what I do in a typical work week in terms of training. Now, I do want to apologize. This first day, day one, I'm training 4 days per week. Me, being the seasoned veteran on YouTube that I am, forgot to take my camera lens off of manual focus. So everything's just slightly out of focus. But anyways, my day one training typically is a squat variation. For this training block, I am doing some safety bar squats, which to me is probably one of my favorite squat assistance exercises. A lot of people kind of say, oh, you're too far forward, you're bent over. Take a look at my squat. That's what it looks like, and that's one of the big reasons why I really like it. Now, one of the other things that I'm doing here is trying to get some more back work in. This is something that's also similar of what I was doing on Wendler 531. Here, I'm using some of those wagon wheels, and this is great for me because of my height. This puts me in a lot better position than standard pendlay rows from the floor because I tend to be a little bit more bent over. My back tends to be a little bit more rounded. And I'm really trying to keep my back angle consistent through all of these. From there, we move on to bench. This is more of my bench volume day, so higher reps here, typically sets of 8 to 10. And in this 4 days of training that I'm doing, I'm actually benching 3 times per week, which some might think is a detriment and say the more you bench, it's going to be harder to recover. You're not going to be able to make as much progress. I feel a lot better benching 3 times per week than I do twice per week. So I'm curious to see if that would 4 times would kind of get me over the hump, so to say. And I say that because back when I had an AC issue several years ago now, seems like just the other day, one of the ways we helped recover was actually increasing my frequency to 4 times per week. Obviously, all those days aren't going to be super intense, but something to take kind of into consideration because I feel really good on 3, so maybe feel even better on 4. And I'm talking over just these wide grip weighted pull-ups because there's not that much to see, ending the day with some fluff work, of course, with just some tricep press downs. And for this, I'm using the Slinger. If you've been following me on Instagram, I've been talking about the Slinger. There's some updates coming out to this, at least Rogue's been teasing that look great. I still don't think this is worth it for just the band resistance because it's just a glorified band pull down anyway, but I have been working them in because I want to get the use out of that. So here we are going on to day 2, starting the day with what are basically block pulls. Again, using those wagon wheels, and these things have been really a godsend, and I've done a review on this, and if you haven't seen that, I really like these because it makes loading the plates so much easier. It's much easier to set up than block pulls using blocks themselves, and they're a lot more convenient despite the fact that they're huge wagon wheels that weigh 70 pounds each. We then have, again, more bench. Spoiler alert, I mentioned I'm going to be benching 3 times per week out of these 4 days of training. This day, where the other one was a volume day, is more of form focus, I'd say, so tempo work, so it's a 2-1-0. And then from there, move on to a little bit of dumbbell pressing, and here I'm using my Iron Master adjustable dumbbells, something like 90 some pounds here, and there's a lot of adjustable dumbbells on the market. I've done a video review on these as well. I like these a lot because these feel the most like actual dumbbells, and I'm not someone who likes to superset or do drop sets, so I'm not really concerned with how quickly you can change the weights on these, and it's not the quickest system, but I still think it's pretty efficient and pretty quick, all things considered, and they're the most versatile because, again, feel like dumbbells and you can drop them and they still work. And then what would a training week be without curling in the squat rack? Now, this is a request that I had. I wanted to make sure that I hit a little bit of biceps, and to be honest, in order to increase this, I could start doing some of the rowing movements underhand, or maybe the pull-up movements as more of a chin-up, but it wouldn't be a video of training without the truth of curling in the squat rack. So those are the first 2 days of training. I then take my 3rd day off, so typically train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, so I take Wednesday and the weekends off. Thursday, come back and do my squat work. So this is actual competition style squats. And these have been feeling pretty good for the most part. I transitioned from running Wendler for 12 weeks using flats, which I'm kind of the type of person that can kind of go back and forth with no issues. And I've been using these position R1s, which are 1/2-inch heels. I like them. I'm trying to stick to them for the entirety of the training cycle. Also, I've really been enjoying using this hip thruster pad on this day because there's 2 movements I use it for. Number 1 is these split squats, which using with a safety bar in the rack and not really heavy weights because these things just burn the hell out of my thighs. But I've really been enjoying these. And this is something that I've never really done just because I haven't had really a good way to set it up using a bench necessarily. That adjustable bench you see in the background is 130 pounds. It's not easy to move around. And I'd like to do these in the rack just in case my balance kind of falters, which I'm not necessarily the most smooth person out there. I'm not a gazelle like I was in my younger years, but this way if I do fall over, I'm completely protected, completely safe. I then also just do some bent over rows. I'm not a big fan of this movement. Actually, I prefer to do these in the actual rack itself. I like to set up there using the straps. But one of the things I'm still trying to do for a lot of my assistance work is superset a lot of the work in. So for those bent over rows, the reason I was using those big wagon wheels again is because I also like to come in here and do some hip thrusters with the barbell, and they make setting up so much easier because with my big floppy feet and my huge thighs, it makes getting the bar into position much easier. Now, one of the things I'm also using on these, this is kind of a new movement for me. I never liked to do these in the past. I never really had a good way to set them up. And I'll talk about this more when I talk about my hip thruster pad review. But the thing with this is it makes setting up so much easier, and I'm using the actual hip circle here because I see everybody else do it and it makes me feel it more in my glutes. Typically doing very high reps on these, and although the load is very light and the RPE is probably pretty light, just the amount of volume doing on these really burns my glutes over time. So I completely talked through the deadlift set, that's okay, but the second half of the week, as you saw with the competition style squats and the competition style deadlifts or pulls from the floor, and now these bench sets, which are more of a heavier weight for a normal tempo and just heavier weights, is just kind of more my competition style movements. Now, that being said, I still do some accessory work on here. In this case, these are, I guess you would call these snatch grip RDLs. They're really funky here. Wasn't really feeling it. I've kind of been playing around with a way to hit my hamstrings. I don't think this is it. We'll continue to experiment and add weight and just try to get a better overall feeling on it. But by this point, I'm kind of mentally checked out. So I need to find something that I like doing too. I think that's a big important thing when it comes to training. Find exercises you like, but definitely need to find something that's going to hit my hamstrings a little bit more effectively, or at least maybe I need to just put more thought and effort into keeping my form how it should be. And then finishing off the day with just some overhead press. And this is something that I've deprioritized because even though I think it could potentially be important for an all-around kind of strength phase, it's not the same emphasis that it had in the 531 Wendler that I was running. But we'll continue to run this for the next couple of weeks, and just wanted to give you guys what I was doing. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.